In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to make interactive scatter plots in R with the help of ggplot library and the plotly library. Scatter plots are a really good way to explore relationships between two numeric variables. And they're particularly useful when the variables are continuous variables. So in this case, I'm going to be using the empty cars dataset that is pre-built into R. And I'm going to be using a couple of the variables from that data set, such as miles per gallon and weight. You're welcome to choose any of the other variables that are numeric and continuous. So first thing first, we're going to load up the libraries that we're interested in using, which include the tidyverse library. Tidyverse gives us access to the ggplot library, as well as some additional functions and packages for data manipulation in R. And the plotly library, which can help us to convert static charts into interactive charts. Also using the empty cars dataset, as I specified earlier. So if you want to follow along, you can open up a new script file in R, or you can open up an R Markdown file, like the one that I have loaded. Go ahead and run this chunk, and then let's start developing a scatter plot using this data. So first thing first, I'm going to pipe this data into a select function and select a couple of the columns that I'm interested in, such as the miles per gallon and the weight. And I'm going to pipe this into a ggplot object, ggplot function, which creates a ggplot object. And what it helps us to do is to map the data to a given type of graph. So in our case, it's going to be Geom point, which helps us to create scatter plots. So here I'm going to specify mapping, which is one of the arguments, and provide the aesthetics for the graph, which include the miles per gallon and the weight. So for x variable, I'm going to specify the weight, since I want the weight on the x-axis and miles per gallon on the y-axis. If I go ahead and just run this, it's just going to generate this empty graph. So next thing, we need to put points on this graph. And the way to do that is to use a Geom point function. Once I go ahead and write that and execute this, I'm going to start getting the points on the chart. And it's already kind of looking like the chart that we have up here. We can make it look a little bit nicer. So there are a few arguments that I can specify within Geom point, which can make the chart look a little bit more presentable. So one of them is going to be size, because I want to increase the size of the dots a little bit. So I'm going to use a size of 2. And if I run this, the dots get a little bit larger. The other thing is color. So I'm going to go ahead and type color. And in my case, I'm going to use red dots. You're welcome to use any of the other colors as well. Go ahead and run that, and the chart starts to look a little bit nicer. One additional thing I want to do is to go ahead and strip the background. So I prefer a blank background. You can keep it if you like this way. So to strip away the background, I'm just going to use theme, and I'm going to use theme black and white. If I execute this, the chart is starting to look pretty nice. Next thing, I'm also gonna put some title on this chart and change the way the x-axis and the y-axis labels look. So to put a title on this graph, I'm gonna use the labs function. And in here I can specify the title, which is just gonna be empty cars. And then I'm going to say miles per gallon versus weight. Go ahead and run this. Next thing, I'm going to change the X label. So I'm just going to type xlab. And here I'm just going to type weight. Also going to change the Y label. So I'm going to type ylab and then miles per gallon, mpg. Go ahead and run this. So now it's starting to look pretty nice. It's very presentable, and An additional thing you could do is to add a trend line in there to make it pretty clear what the relationship between these two variables looks like. So to do that, we can use a function called Geom Smooth. In Geom Smooth, you need to specify the type of method that will be used to create the trend line. So we're going to use the linear model method, and here I'm going to specify method equals lm. You can also use generalized linear models or LOS and several others. So once I go ahead and run this, it's going to generate this line which goes to the data points, and it's pretty apparent that there exists some type of numeric relationship between these two variables. An additional thing you can do is, if you want to take away these confidence intervals, you can specify here SE and type false, and it gets rid of them. So this is starting to look pretty nice. Last thing, if you want to convert this into an interactive chart, just go ahead and store this into a variable such as G or scatterplot or something. And first of all, we can output this. Still the same graph. But then if you want to convert this into an interactive chart, what we can do is to just use plotly to get the ggplotly function. And I'm just going to type that. And all I need to do is add this variable G in here and control and enter. And so now I have this interactive chart, plotly, which is pretty useful because I can focus on any specific points to explore perhaps any outliers that seem to be interesting, or if we're interested in zoning in on any specific section of the data, we can do that with the help of ggplot, the plotly library. So that's about it. I would say this looks like a pretty nice chart, and it's something that we can send to our colleagues. And yep, that's it for this tutorial. Thank you.